Thanks, Senator Padilla, for that excellent opening statement and for holding this Spotlight Forum. We're here today because the sacred right to vote in America is under attack. Republican elected officials, now federal institutions under the Trump administration, are attempting to further restrict access to the ballot under the false banner of election integrity. Most disturbingly, some of these efforts are being carried out or enabled by the very government entities charged with protecting that right. This betrayal is deliberate, it's strategic, it is eroding the foundation of our democracy. Let me be clear, there is no longer a functioning federal entity actively safeguarding your right to vote. The Justice Department's Civil Rights Division, once the proud defender of voting access for communities of color, military service members, rural voters, and people with disabilities, has turned inward under a reimagined mission aligned with MAGA politics and driven by the lies of widespread voter fraud. The division's voting section has completely abdicated its role in confronting the real and rising tide of disenfranchisement. And this is just not a theory. Look at North Carolina, where there was an aggressive, though thankfully unsuccessful, attempt to discard valid ballots and overturn an election after Justice Allison Riggs, now a member of the state's highest court and a witness here today, thank you for coming, before us finally won her seat. That is not democracy, that is sabotage. Look at our federal agencies. The Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security are making demands for voter rolls from multiple states to initiate voter roll purges. These efforts, made under the guise of combating fraud, will disproportionately endanger voters of color, low-income communities, and active military personnel. Ms. Goldbeck's testimony today will no doubt speak to the betrayal of our service members. Look what they faced. They defended our country, and now we're questioning their right to vote. What we are witnessing today is not a series of isolated misjudgments. This is a coordinated effort, emboldened by the myth of the stolen 2020 election, to restrict access to the polls through redistricting, voter roll purges, and legislative barriers. We must treat this effort to erode our democracy with the urgency it demands. Yesterday, I joined Senators Warnock, Schumer, Blumenthal, Booker, and Senator Padilla, reintroducing the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. This legislation would restore and strengthen pre-clearance protections gutted by the Supreme Court in 2013 and reestablish meaningful federal oversight of voting laws in jurisdictions with a history of discrimination. The last time the Voting Rights Act was reauthorized, the Senate unanimously passed the legislation. Democrats and Republicans joined together then to support it, and it was signed into law by George W. Bush. This year marks the 60th anniversary of the passage of the original Voting Rights Act and 20 years since its last reauthorization. And unfortunately, the bipartisan support we once saw for protecting the most fundamental of our rights has disappeared. Have we forgotten Selma? Have we forgotten that people bled on the bridge and others lost their lives so that all Americans could have the freedom to cast their ballot without intimidation and baseless discriminatory restriction? We cannot afford to ignore what's happening in plain sight. We must act not just to protect the future, but to honor the legacy of those who fought to secure the ballot. History is watching, and it will not be kind to silence. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.